So the first thing I really want to talk about is an ex-Clinton consultant is a spokesperson for the Children Detention Center, for a Southwest Key Children Detention Center. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. So I wrote this at 90.1 KPFT, but ex-Clinton consultant is spokesperson for Houston's Children Detention Center. Now I put Houston, but it's, Southwest Key. He is the spokesperson for this group. So earlier this year, Southwest Key Programs, a children detention center, was planned to be in Houston, blah, blah, blah. While this process has been contentious, Jeff Eller, a spokesperson for the Children Detention Center, has been an overlooked common thread in these discussions. Now, I want to click this link so you can see here's Southwest Key Programs, a Children Detention Center. And you can see down here at the very bottom, there's his name, right? News media contact. He is listed as a news media contact. So, make that very clear. Jeff Eller Group, the firm that he's founded, is a crisis management firm. He does a decent job of outlining the basics of his political connections. The leadership section says he did communication strategies for multiple leading corporations as the Firestone tire recall and GM ignition switch issue. The website also states he began working for then Governor Clinton in December 1991, first as a Florida state campaign director, and then as political communications director for the national campaign. He has been involved in numerous congressional and Senate campaigns and worked for 2 members of Congress, serving in the Clinton White House as deputy assistant to the president and director of media affairs. Eller oversaw all regional and specialty media relations as well as television services. So this is where it gets really fun, really like, wow, what the hell. WikiLeaks released the Podesta emails in 2016, and in an email correspondence with Eller regarding his career, he says he worked, like his clients were Goldman Sachs, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman. They are widely known war profiteers. So attached to his email to John Podesta was his resume. So this dude, he started off, here, I'm going to come back over here so you can see my face. This dude started off as a reporter, okay? Like, we're going to go through his resume, and I'm going to break down his career before he went into crisis management. But he was a reporter. He started off in radio, and his last job was an ABC correspondent covering, events, high scale events and trials. Like, I'm really excited about this, so excuse me kind of like just getting all over the place, but it's bullshit. Oh my gosh. Okay, so again, he was a reporter up until 1985 with ABC, and he was a news anchor covering federal court elections. And look, I have his resume right here. We're gonna pop it open. See, reporter anchor for ABC affiliate. This is in 1985. And then that's when he launched himself into congressional stuff. So the congressman that he talks about in his leadership section of his website was Bill, I guess, Bonner, all these other ones. Now this one is very interesting. Panama presidential election for Panama City in 1989. So that one we really need to just straight up talk about. So 1989, Eller was part of international outreach for the coalition running against Manuel Noriega in the Panama presidential election after the United States had invaded Panama. Noriega was painted by the U.S. corporate media as a drug trafficking dictator in Panama. However, up until the end of the Cold War, Noriega was on the CIA's payroll. Eller was hired as a consultant for Guillermo and Endara against Manuel Noriega. Hired by whom, that bit's unclear. I'm assuming the government did it. But if you want to learn more about Panama, this is a good site, a good interview that Democracy Now! Did. and it really outlines what happened in Panama. So he was hired as a consultant, so of course he was, right? But of course, during the 1990s, he worked with the Clinton administration, and he got more involved with the crisis management side of PR. He developed Public Strategies Inc. Crisis and Litigation Practice, and in 2014, he founded the Jeff Eller Group. Eller was also a donor and former board member of the Texas Tribune. So because this guy is very much clearly in the political establishment, particularly doing crisis management. He did crisis management, as we saw in the article, for Goldman Sachs, Lockheed Martin, Firestone, Northrop Grumman, the GM ignition issue. It was only a matter of time, in my opinion, that he was going to do crisis management for a children detention center, Southwest Key. So this is something I found while doing work in Houston. For those of you who don't know, I am actually a journalist. I do a lot of Houston-specific work. That's why you see 90.1 KPFT. That's a local news station that I've been reporting with. But I saw his name, and it's like, wow, this is a much bigger issue than just Houston. And you know what? It gets even better. Worker charged with sexually molesting 8 children at immigrant shelter. Right? So this was in August, and this was about Southwest Key. So I'm just going to do, just Control F Jeff real quick. So in response to questions from ProPublica, Jeff Eller, a spokesman for Southwest Key, wrote in an email he was unable to comment on specific cases. When he asked how the alleged actions could have escaped detection for 11 months, Eller didn't answer the question, but said any employee accused of abuse is immediately suspended and law enforcement called. This is what we did in this case. Eller said the allegations were also reported, blah, blah, blah. In a response to about how the company could assure the public that children are safe in its facilities, Eller wrote, "We find the premise of your question dishonorable." Okay, I'm going to repeat that. In response to a question about how the company could assure the public that the children are safe in its facilities, Eller wrote, "We find the premise of your question dishonorable." So I really need to break that down for a second. I really find the premise of your question dishonorable. Okay, that is called gaslighting, right? So I don't know if you follow the corporate media or any of the corporate goons as much as probably Jordan does. But this is a classic sort of tactic, is just putting it back onto the person. It's like, what you just said was dishonorable. Bitch, what was dishonorable was that you're excusing this molester to begin with. Like, how are you the spokesperson of a children detention center, number one? And two, how are you even considering that it's dishonorable on the reporter's part for asking how he's going to assure the public this won't happen again? Okay, so I'm still going to talk about this guy because I got one more juicy little thing for you. This guy was on the board for the Texas Tribune. Texas Tribune is actually one of my favorite publications in Texas. I tend to think they do a good job of actually reporting the truth. I know that seems counterintuitive considering this guy was on the board, but they do write an article about it addressing the hypocrisy of having a dude like that on the board while trying to write for truth and justice. So while this guy was on the board, Jeff Eller, this ex-Clinton consultant, not even ex-Clinton consultant, ex-Clinton administration. This guy was an administrator person for the Clintons while they were in the White House, more specifically facilitating communications. So, while he was on the board during the 2016 primaries, came across something really interesting. So, this right here, The Sanders Family Quid Pro Quo and the GOP Machine by J. Eller, The Polluted Political Trail to Sierra Blanca. Right, so this talks about the Texas-Vermont-Maine Nuclear Waste Compact. This was a big thing that Sanders did 20 years ago that I think was questionable. That's one of the more questionable things Sanders did that I don't agree with. So he wrote this, fast facts, and then, ooh, look over here. Bernie Sanders' nuclear waste votes divide Texas activists. And you go through, and it has a lot of the same talking points. So the fast facts that are found in here can be found in here. My favorite thing about this article or this PDF was, hold on. First of all, it's 30 pages, okay? So Jeff Eller really went into this. But my favorite thing is at the bottom of this. More to come. Please stay tuned, engaged. Meanwhile, be sure to check out Vetting Bernie on Twitter, controlled by the people. Why does he have that in quotes? It's just weird. So, but at any rate, I found this little jewel about the Sierra pro quo, and unfortunately, I could not find a date on this. I mean, there's a hunger strike thing, but I didn't find a date when this particular piece was released. See, Bernie's sweet tooth. Ugh. So it's like, how was it that a lot of this same verbiage is also found over here in 2016 when he was on the board of the Texas Tribune?